one of the podcasts I listened to, like called Earn Your Leisure, they did a whole podcast of ways like you can potentially make money from podcasts. And I was like, let me get this a shot. And it was like literally one day, like January 2020, sitting on my bed, like phone hovering over my mouth. So I had the name already picked out, and like, this is the Social Work Rants Podcast. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but we're going to make figure out whatever I said the first episode, and it's literally whatever ideas I had in my head, I just did it.
This is Heard Business School, where we sit down with private practice owners and industry experts to learn about the business of therapy together. I'm your host, Michael Fulwiler. This week I'm joined by Bas Moreno, a certified financial social worker and host of the Social Work Rants Podcast. In our conversation, we unpack his journey from growing up in the Bronx to becoming a voice for mental health, financial literacy, and social work entrepreneurship. Bas opens up about how the pandemic reshaped his world, personally and professionally, and why he's on a mission to support caregivers in the sandwich generation, managing family responsibilities while building financial stability. His story is personal, powerful, and real. I hope it sticks with you the way it did with me. Enjoy. Basiliso Moreno, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael. What's going on?
Excited to have you on, man. I got to ask, it's Friday. Are your progress notes done?
They will be by 4:30.
All right, by end of day, I'll check in again. It's funny. At some point during COVID, I started tweeting, therapists, are your progress notes done on Fridays? Because a lot of therapists put their notes off till the end of the week, and it just became a thing. And then therapists just started tweeting at me, finish my progress notes, shout out to Michael, thanks for the reminder, and kind of just was the thing there for a while.
Yeah, and then Elon messed up Twitter, and that was a wrap.
Yeah, I know, that's it. Yeah. Was there for a good time, not for a long time, but excited to chat with you, man. It's been fun to meet online, and then we got to hang out in person at an event for social workers in New York, and I love the work you're doing. You do a bunch of stuff as a social worker, so excited to chat about that. I want to start, so you grew up in the Bronx. Your first gen parents are from Puerto Rico. You told me they came over in the 60s. What was that like growing up in the Bronx as a kid?
Oh man, it's interesting to say the least. That's my forever home. Nobody can say anything negative about the Bronx, even though there's a lot of negatives that's happened, and that's a lot of it is due to the systemic racism that exists in America, and certain wannabe politicians had a lot of power for whatever reason and did things to the borough to separate folks and building highways in the middle of neighborhoods that causing asthma to folks to this very day. But besides the fact, I grew up in the 80s, the crack epidemic and the first rumblings of HIV and AIDS that was out there, and having President Reagan and Nancy Reagan talking about just say no to drugs, and the commercials you see on TV with the cracked eggs on the pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? And it's like finding out as an adult how America has done a terrible job addressing drugs in this country. But it was cool. It was just me and my parents. Grew up as an only child. Finding out later, I do have two half brothers and a half sister. Most of their lives they live in Puerto Rico, but I think at least my two oldest were born in New York, and then with their mom moved to Puerto Rico. So I didn't get to meet them until like I was about 10 years old. So like one by one, I started meeting one individually and getting to know them and stuff like that. But it was just three of us. For me, I would just go to school and go home. Like I wasn't a going out type of kid. Like going out, why? Like the Yankee games at 7:30. I gotta like mentally prepare myself for the game. Like I ain't trying to go out. So yeah, so it was just going to school. I made friends at school. Though many of the kids lived in the neighborhood, so go to the supermarket. I'll see my friends and we'll talk and kick it for a little bit and stuff like that. So obviously, you did see like needles in the street, seeing crack vials on the streets and stuff like that. Occasionally heard like gunshots in the neighborhood from time to time. Unfortunately, I lost a classmate due to gun violence. Then as I got older as an adult, a kid I grew up with, he was already an adult. We were both adults at the time, but yeah, passed away too. So grew up with kids that rather be in the streets and do whatever. And the park that we had was, they were always like trying to fix it. So it looks better now as an adult than it did as a kid. There are certain blocks in my neighborhood that I wouldn't go hang out purposely because I knew stuff would happen. So it was like, safer at home.
And as a kid, were you exposed at all to therapy or mental health services? Was there a social worker at your school that you remember?
Thinking back, like the only quote unquote social worker or care manager would be, so I grew up, my mom being on public assistance welfare at the time. New Yorkers call it face to face meeting. Boy, face to face, tengo cita face to face. So you basically meet your care manager and recertify for assistance. What would be food stamps. But the food stamps at the time where you actually got like a coupon book, it will have an equivalent to money. So it'd be like a
Yep.
$5 bill, $1 bill, but it'll say food stamps on it. So when you go to the supermarket, you literally have the whole book and like how much is it? Be like $15. So you get like a couple fives or or singles.
Yeah.
And it was interesting.
So
Now,
you remember that as a kid? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Now it's just like a EBT card.
yeah.
So yes, I would go with my mom to those appointments. Occasionally, I may have to translate. Usually, I would just be in the office playing with the other kids, running around the food stamp office, playing with other kids.
Daycare.
Because there was an office literally like down the street from the old Yankee Stadium where we always go to. I think that office is still there actually. But yeah, so that was like my first kind of indication. Thinking back at adult, oh yeah, that was a caseworker or a social worker.
Yeah, you probably weren't even like aware of
No,
it.
I wasn't
Yeah, at
aware
the
at all.
time.
No,
Mhm.
not at all.
And then when did you start to become, interested in becoming a social worker? When did that get on your radar?
Oh man, so I'm gonna try to make this story short. Kind of long. So my bachelor's is actually communications with a minor in education. So I actually wanted to be a sports broadcaster when leaving undergrad, and then so I graduated in May 2001, and of course months later the 9/11 terror attacks happened in New York. A crazy time to say the least.
Yeah, were you in the city when that happened?
Yes,
Do you remember? Mm.
yes, I could tell you it's one of these days that you know exactly where you were, what you did is between that day and my first wedding. I could tell you it's exactly what I did.
Yeah, different kind of days, but
Yeah, but that day, just my routine at the time, again, like I worked briefly after I graduated and then I left the job. My dad was still working. I don't remember if he was still working or not, but I know my mom was working. She was working at a school as a paraprofessional for special needs kids in a school in the Bronx. So little my dad was home and I were home. Wake up, I hear like these sirens passing by. Like, what the heck is going on? So that's my first indication of waking up, and then like turn on the radio to listen to this shock jock at the time on High 97 radio station. Very controversial guy.
yeah, shout out
Um,
to him.
and he says one of the planes got hit, and it was like, I like this guy better not be freaking kidding me. So I turn on the TV, turn on CNN. At the time, CNN. This is 2001. They're still credible, and I see one of the towers on fire, and it's like, oh snap! This guy was telling the truth. And then live, like many people did, saw the other plane hit the towers. So long story short, maybe like a few days before the towers hit, I went through a temp agency in Times Square. Like I needed a job, and like my friend that summer told me about a temp agency and see what they offered, and did the whole test. Like they have a placement test, and I didn't get a call until like a couple days after Christmas, 2001. Hey, we got this job. I'll take it. I'll take it. They'll like like sleep on it. And I called the next day. And it was like ends up being a foster care job as a caseworker. So I started like literally January 2022 working at this foster care agency, making $8.25 an hour. Did that for a few months, and then I got bumped up to like 8.50 an hour because I spoke Spanish. And I actually did that for 6 months. In in between those 6 months, the agency changed HR directors, so I was like kind of in limbo. Like they wanted to put me on permanent, then they changed. as a permanent position, offering me a salary, and HR changes happen, and like I'm stuck in limbo. I was like, I'm giving it another few months, otherwise I'm gonna get out of here. In between the time frame, I'm like going to court, and there was like this like family court judge that hated our agency that we worked with and always threatened to shut down our agency. And one time actually put me in contempt of court if I didn't do these like certain things for this family. I was like stressing out already. I'm like literally 20, not even 22 yet. And like stressing out over this $8.50 an hour foster care job. They finally put me on permanent, and that's how I got started like in the field, and actually worked there for 3 years. And so all these supervisors coming in and out, and I could tell I got, for many of those who walked in the door, like I got more skilled than they do. But they have these three letters after their name, and it's like MSW. Was like, huh, I guess I'm gonna have to go back to school and get this MSW degree if I want to make some more money. So that's the ball started rolling. And one of the supervisors that I had at the time, he was like my first mentor. When he left, he was always in my ear talking, you need to go get your MSW, you need to go get your MSW. And eventually I went to school, and we can talk about that, but that was like a whole whole other experience right there. The school on 60th Street in Columbus Circle in New York, with the maroon and white colors.
Why was that not a great experience?
I found out recently a couple of people still have to do this, but I had to find my own internship. I'm like, I'm paying you all this money, and money that I have to pay back in student loans. And like, why you can't help me out with finding a field placement that's like your job? So luckily enough for me that I was already in the social service field and already having connections with folks. I left the foster care job. I went to another agency after that, and finding out like that agency, the director went to Fordham, the one of the supervisors went to Fordham, and then once like that director left that job and went to another agency, I still kept in contact with her. I had reached out to her like, hey, like I need an internship because the school's not helping me, and it's like, I got you, no problem. So like literally, I got my own internship just based on networking and people that I knew already in the space. And I knew other my friends, my peers at Fordham, that they were working full time and they were able to still get internships. They were like, why can't you help me? So that was like a pain, a real pain that I'm in my petty era. So still, even though it's 2025, I graduated in 2010 with my master's. It's stuff like when I talk to folks, MSW students now, is you shouldn't be going through the same issues in 2025 that I did in 2010s, and then to pay back those student loans, and be fighting to advocate for us for our loans to be forgiven, and
Yeah.
especially with COVID. Like a lot of us actually were in the field helping folks and risking our own lives to care for others in the community. Like the least we could do is pay off our loans that we
Yeah.
went to school for. Yeah, so a long winded answer why I don't big up my school, like a lot of my peers do.
That's valid. So you mentioned you worked in foster care. You've done case management work with severely mental ill adults. You've also worked with adults with ADHD. Have you ever thought about getting your LCSW and doing clinical work in private practice? Is that like something that you're interested in?
I did for a while, so I'm a proud job hopper. So I would go, I would say like so 2012, like 2011, I started doing some individual counseling at an agency working with adults living with HIV and AIDS. And then like an opportunity came to work at an outpatient clinic doing individual therapy, obviously working under a LC for progress notes, approvals and signatures and stuff. So I did that. And during that time period, I was studying to take the ASWB exam. I already had failed it by that time like twice already, maybe three times. So the plan for me, because I was living in New Jersey at the time, the test I was taking it has a Jersey licensed professional. So the plan was to obviously pass the test and then find a job in Jersey since I was already living there, and not do the travel back and forth to from living in New Jersey, traveling almost 2 hours to New York to work, and then travel almost two hours back home. So I was living in New Jersey for 9 years before I moved back home to the Bronx. And then I was like, kept failing and giving every SWB more on my money. So those 2 years that I worked during the an outpatient clinic, I was like, a lot of these clients were not coming in with a lot of real clinical issues, at least by the book type of thing, and more like cultural issues. So I'm first gen American, born and raised in the Bronx, and I got families who coming in, literally coming from, many of them coming from South American countries, different countries in South America, and but they having like first gen American kids coming in. So that cultural shock, that cultural issues, that you got to do what I say, and all the stereotypical stuff and like traditional stuff happening, or stuff being like depressed because like your kid, like your adult kid doesn't call you like every day like you want them to. I'm like, that's not what I studied at Fordham. But it's like, but in my head, if she don't call you, she don't call you. Why you stressing? And it's like, I hear you, understand. But I'm like, just life happens. You gotta live your life too. I'm like, come on. And I'm like very like down to earth, like relaxed, chill, and like
Yeah.
they're like rah 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 rah. It was like, so there was like a disconnect there too. So it was like, I don't want to really do this much longer. If I
Yeah.
do,
For me,
if I do, the
yeah.
population has to be more diverse.
Mm,
Like majority of the clients were a lot of Latino from South America. I would say like over 90% at the time. And eventually I ended up getting laid off just out the blue, shockingly. But yeah, and then I stayed on for another 3 months at another agency that was in the same neighborhood. I was like, no, don't want to do this anymore. Let me go back to case management, doing with severely mentally ill
right.
adults or HIV folks. Yeah, that's more like my bread and butter. So yeah, after the fifth time of failing, and I failed by like literally like points. Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure if I want to get this LC anymore. And just at the time, I was going like, this was already like 2014, 2015. Prior to COVID was the worst year of my life. I got like, separated from my wife. My ex-wife had substance abuse
Mm,
issues thanks to the American healthcare system. When I had my son, literally, she had a allergic reaction to the epidural, and then having like severe back pain to the point starting getting painkillers for it, and got addicted to the pain pills, and then like alcohol joined the party with the pain pills. So it was not a good time
yeah.
whatsoever. But I'm always like, unless I tell you, I usually have a pretty good poker face on. I did mention to my supervisors what kind of what was going on, but not really. And like it was affecting like the work at the end of the day, and then a couple of times coming in late, or like last minute having to like, I can't come in today and call out. And so that it was a rough time. And then even the next job I had like pretty much like the worst supervisor I ever had work wise. It was the only job I had that most of the employees were male, which was interesting experience to say the least. There might have been like two females. Obviously, the higher ups, like the VPs, they were women, but like the in the trenches, us, the case managers, the social workers, we were all male and just kicking it, like supporting each other. And now that I was back, I was in my getting my groove back era, like literally trying to like, so like finding about all these like dating apps. So it's like, what the heck is all these dating apps? What is this? And like, I met my first wife at a club, so it was like, dating apps. What is it? Now I gotta take like selfies of myself, and all my pictures are me and my kids. And it was like, I'm not trying to post my kids on a dating app. So I started going back to the gym, gain like all this weight. When you're married and you're in love, we call it the love pounds. And just yeah, started losing some weight and was ready to like go back out there on the dating scene. So 2016 was interesting. I started going to therapy last year, 2024. So like when I told my therapist about 2016, and she was like, "Wow, you had a very interesting 2016 too." So I had started a new job, probably like the best job I ever had, to the point like literally was like hybrid model before hybrid was popular. I was able to, a lot of my clients literally lived in the neighborhood, or at least like a train ride away. So it was a very convenient job. I was able to bring my kids to work if I needed to. Yeah, it was like really cool. Unfortunately, so I started a new job. That summer, my ex-wife passed away. Then I met what would be my second wife. It's like literally like 3 months later. Like I'm literally still grieving, and then I go. I was so happy just to leave the kids with grandma. It was like Labor Day weekend, 2016. It's like I'm kid free for a weekend. Let me go to this day party, whatever that I was going to was like a New York City Latino professional meetup type of events that I would once in the blue I would go to. So I had no expectations of meeting. I just needed like a break, drink a beer at a rooftop party and no expectations of meeting anybody, just like chill, relax. And then as I'm meeting somebody, it was like, oh snap. I was like all nervous. What's the protocol? Like, do I text? Do I call? Like, 2 days and texted her like, and then we went out like on our first date like that same weekend. To end the year of 2016, I had to get my appendix removed. And she came, she was visiting her family to Delaware and she was going to move out there. And then she meets me and my charm, my sex appeal, like, stopped her from doing that, at least initially. She comes up from visiting her parents to Delaware, came straight to the hospital to go visit me, and she meets my mom for the first time while in the hospital. And like my mom, God rest her soul. So I went like over 24 hours without eating. I need my coffee. I'm definitely addicted to the caffeine.
Yep.
So
As any
I had more of a headache because I was going through caffeine withdrawal than pain from my appendix. And my mom comes up. I finally get to eat. So I'm like literally scarfing like everything down. And there was this bread roll there. And mom comes up for whatever reason without asking and tries to grab my bread roll. And I like, "Rah! What are you doing? Like, I didn't eat. I haven't eaten in 24 hours. What are you doing eating my, trying to take my bread roll?" And that was like the first time like Janice like sees me angry like that for the first time. And on top of that, me yelling at my mom. So I was like, I tell her all the time, that was your first opportunity to leave me, but you didn't. So
yeah,
I gave you a shot. But she stayed, and then we get married in 2022, going on almost 3 years already next month.
that's awesome. So fast forward to 2020, you've been
Yes.
open about the fact that during the pandemic you lost 10 clients. Like you also lost your mom during that time.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
All right, so let me backtrack to the beginning summer of
Mm,
2019. So my mom had history with vertigo and like falling from time to time. She fell, really had a bad fall, I want to say like 2018, to the point that she needed like 7 staples in her head. So I told her like the next fall you have is going to, you're really going to hurt yourself. So fast forward 2019, I'm going to taking the kids to go see their godmother in Poughkeepsie, which is like upstate in New York, for the day. And then the next day, my best friend was getting married. So I told my mom, I'm not going to be home all weekend. You need to like be careful. Don't go anywhere if you don't have to. Let dad go to the supermarket or whatever. Hey, soon enough, then the very next day, I get a life alert message on my phone. Just got to take it to the hospital, and then coming to find out she broke her ankle in 2 places. So at the time, also I was working at a long-term care insurance plan company providing case management for adults, older adults, so the seniors, helping them like with their Medicaid application recertifications, making sure any discharge planning from the hospital going back home, or if they're in short-term rehab going back home if need be, or setting up long-term care for them in a nursing home. So just a lot of variety of different things with the older adult population. So I'm in it working, and then I got two older adults at home
yeah.
and doing my own care management for my mom initially. And now I'm literally using my own work skills, like finding nursing homes for my mom. And based on her insurance, there was a couple of nursing homes that, that I wanted to put her in, but insurance wise didn't pay for it. So, like, doing all that, the back end stuff, she needed nursing home care, at least for short term rehab to take care of for her ankle. The ankle turns into, she had a bed sore on the same ankle, so was dealing with that. Her diabetes didn't cause the bed sore to heal properly, so put an equipment. It's called a wound vac. So it's literally like a almost like a handheld vacuum that they literally put on your skin to try to heal any broken skin that older adults will tend to get. So that wasn't working. So literally it's like December and we start hearing these first rumblings of what's going on in China. Something's happening out there in
Mm, yeah.
China. Then obviously 2021, 2020 comes in, hearing more and more of it. Now it's hearing in Europe. I really didn't pay too much into it, at least not initially. And then literally pretty much was setting up my own discharge plan for my own mom to get out. What would that look like? What equipment do I need? They were trying to give me equipment that I was telling them it doesn't fit my house. I literally have a one bedroom apartment with five people living in an apartment. All I need is a hospital bed. And they trying to give me these other equipment. And I was like, that doesn't fit in my house. And they're trying to say that I'm denying it or refusing the equipment. I'm like, no, I'm not refusing. Don't you dare write that on the notes. It won't fit. So we just doing the best we can and trying to talk to my mom. I'm literally having arguments with her. Like my first time as an adult are having arguments where who's gonna take care of you? I gotta go to work. You trying to? Yes, I know you want to come home, and it's only me and dad who. And I recently had got diagnosed with two herniated discs in my back. I literally was playing pickup basketball months prior, and I hurt my finger that was still not healing properly. And then my dad had was really the one with the health issues. So it was like, I don't care. I want to go home. I was like, I understand you want to go home, but let's figure it. So basically, I did an unsafe discharge from my own mom, have- and literally, it was a nightmare to say the least. But I'm glad, I brought her home because literally, 2 weeks or just over 2 weeks later, the world shut down, and COVID is full on. And even though in New York, in the city, the mayor at the time was taking forever to shut down schools and letting things go, and the governor at the time was putting people who was diagnosed with COVID in nursing homes. So now you're affecting people who didn't have COVID who's in the nursing homes, and now they getting it, and it's this domino effect of that. And then I'm dealing with clients, and then literally Microsoft Outlook became my worst enemy. Literally seeing emails of this client passed away, then we have our morning meetings, and then during the meeting we're finding out somebody else passed away. At the meeting, go back to my computer desk and see somebody else pass away. So it was a wild time, and then still having to still do home visits, emergency visits. So the Medicaid renewals were still happening. We got people who lived in the projects and having their housing needed to be recertified. So literally having to dig through people's mail and finding all the documents I need to help recertify people's houses. So I literally had my mask on, my gloves on, and out there, or my headphones to listen to music to calm down, calm myself down. I did so much walking. A lot of my clients lives at least a train ride, and then I have to take a bus to go see them. So I would somehow walk to the train to wherever I needed to. So I lived in the Bronx. If I got to go to Washington Heights and walk over the bridge to go into Manhattan, and then just take the train so that I don't try to infect myself with people on the bus, then I was literally doing that. And then walking back home just to try to protect myself. And later, my dad has autoimmune issues. Obviously, I wasn't trying to get sick as best as I could. And luckily, at the time, my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, Janice, she was working at a school, and they went full virtual. So she took on the responsibility of taking care of my kids while I still had to go to work, so that I only would see my kids on the weekends, which kind of sucked too, at least initially. We was talking about March and April or mid-April of my dad caring for my mom on his own, and then I would come back Sunday night, and basically it became dad duty for babies, kind of whatever mom needed overnight or whatever, and was doing that into the morning. So it was a wild time, and I was able to finally work from home mid-April 2020 because the company, they weren't ready at all for working remotely. So they were like behind in terms of getting us what we needed to work from home. And then one day working from home, I'm literally like, no, I was in the bedroom. The bedroom, I did everything in my bedroom.
Being a therapist is about helping people, not crunching numbers. But when you're running your own practice, managing finances can feel like a full-time job, one you never trained for. That's where Herd comes in. Herd is the financial management platform built just for therapists. No more cobbling together spreadsheets, DIY software, or expensive accountants. With Herd, you get bookkeeping, tax support, and financial insights, all in one easy-to-use platform. Herd was started by an accountant and a software engineer who understand the challenges you face as a business owner. Our mission? To make it incredibly easy for therapists to manage their practice as a business, build wealth, and stay focused on what matters most, their clients. Join thousands of therapists who trust Herd with their finances. Schedule a free consultation today at joinherd.com/consult.
So try to prevent myself like from giving anything in the house. And my mom was like taking her medicine, choking on some Gatorade, and was like, "You all right? What's going on?" And it was like, and she's literally like choking, and she starts getting red, and was like, "Oh snap!" Like literally grabbed the phone, call. I tried to call her doctor initially first, and then like this is getting worse. Let me just call 911. So at the time, this is April 2020. If you go to the hospital, that's it. You're not coming back. At least not in New York City. So you can't visit either. So I'm literally saying my last goodbye. I'm thinking in the hallway of my apartment building, and then literally like that weekend, got. I hope this doctor is still alive and doing well. But literally had a doctor from the ER using WhatsApp from his own phone or somebody's phone, and so I was able to communicate with my mom that weekend. Was still alert, oriented. Yes, was confused, but was she wanted me to come visit. I'm like, it's COVID. I can't go visit you. We don't know what this is and stuff. But just try to stay calm and and do whatever the doctors tell you what to do. So I get a call like that following Tuesday, like, hey, we're going to discharge your mom. And I was like, what? And it's like, she's pretty much medically stable. Yeah, yes, she does have COVID, but pretty much there's no other really symptoms right now. Or like, so I'm fighting with the doctors at the hospital. Then all of a sudden, my dad's doctor is like fighting with me, calling me because he's autoimmune, got my mom with COVID. And I was like, they're trying to ask me like, can my dad like go somewhere? And like, closest family is like in either Florida or Massachusetts, so that's not happening. We gonna figure this out. So like, all right. So she comes home and like as soon as she gets out of the ambulance, I can see right away like she has a flat affect. I try. I want to say this appropriately because this is a mental health podcast. But literally, I could tell right away she wasn't there. Flat affect. Just I knew something was off, and it's like
Yeah.
she only could say a couple words. She just needed some water. They put like this like emergency blanket type of thing that you could rip off. And, like she really had no clothes on, like literally no diaper on, no clothes on. So I like literally, oh snap, she had no clothes. I'm like rushing to go get a diaper, put her on, and in case like literally like how you deal with a baby. It's like in case of pee, poop, whatever. You're not doing it on the floor or whatever. Put clothes on her and gave her some water. And, like she needed to go back to the hospital. So, like trying to calm like my dad's nerves because he was like, she still got COVID. Yeah, we gonna figure this out. Like I'm gonna call the 911 and have her go back to the hospital the next day. So a little while I did, they picked her up, took her back to the hospital, trying to explain to the doctors like this is. I literally had a coherent conversation literally a few days ago. So they thought that was her baseline, just her not be able to speak and not able to say anything on mute for the most part and not really able to be coherent in speaking in her mind. Oh, no, this is not her baseline whatsoever. COVID must have did something to her with her brain or whatever, messing with her body internally somehow. and they couldn't figure it out. So literally, so I was telling the doctors she needed to go to long-term rehab. I can't care for her in the house anymore. It's just literally too much for us in the house. So later I got set up again on finding nursing homes for mom. A nursing home was found. It's like I could walk there. It's literally within the same neighborhood of where we lived at that I've walked constantly as a kid. So I walked past there without knowing that was a nursing home as a kid. Coming a full circle moment, which even hits even harder of losing your own mom. So it literally goes there Friday, Saturday, like literally I get a phone call. So her organs are like literally like failing her. And then the next day I get a call, she passes away. Rough. Definitely rough, to say the
That sounds
least.
tough. Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that. Just so much going on at the time, so much loss.
Yeah, it was.
And like from that loss, you wrote a book of poetry, and I'd love to hear more about that. How did that come about?
I guess thanks to therapy, it was like basically my release, all the trauma release came out of, because even prior to that 2019 I became a certified Zumba instructor, and then went through a audition at a gym and actually got hired to be a Zumba instructor in case it's basically as a sub, so in case somebody like calls out or couldn't do it last minute, they put me in to sub and teach a class. So I was working at a gym, and then COVID happens, and then on top of me working my 9 to 5, and so I get furloughed from the gym job. So I got no gym to release
Yeah.
all the stress of losing all these clients and then losing mom. So out of nowhere, I think one day I was sitting on the couch. I don't know, was either on a Zoom call or watching DJ D Nice on Instagram, or I don't know what I was doing, but I know I was sitting on the
Yeah.
couch, and like these words just started popping in my head, and like started writing. And oh snap, I got poetry. This rhymes. And like, okay. And then writing some more words. Like, oh, this rhymes too. So the plan going into 2020 was to move to Delaware. So that I still maintained that plan despite all my losses. And then I did end up leaving New York, moving to Delaware. Actually, July 4th, 2020, we stayed over Janice's older brother's house for the weekend, and he was gracious enough. Him and his wife was like, "Y'all can stay with us until like you guys find a place down here." There's only so much Zillow you could do online that you actually gotta walk into these houses and see if you like it or not. So that's what we did. So Janice actually came down with the kids first during the summer while I was still working. So Amtrak became my best friend. Literally, like the words would pop up like literally like anywhere at any time, day or night. So I could be sleeping, and all of a sudden these words pop up, like literally in the dark, like having a pen and pad or a pencil and started writing in the dark. I figure it out in the morning what the heck I wrote. Or be in the bathroom. I literally had to take pen and pads to the bathroom, like the shower, and like words would pop up in there. And I gotta write this down because I know I'll forget. And to a point, it's got these 10 poems, and like at first, I was going to do an ebook, and then one of my past podcast guests has a writing program to write your book. So I did that program and had it formatted and was able to publish it out. And literally, like two years later, I think it was like 2022. Like it's on Amazon, and was doing vending events and selling hard copies of the books. Yeah, so it was able to publish a poetry book.
And that's Triumph Through Pain is the name of that. So we'll drop that link.
Trying through pain, how to maximize your full potential in hard times, like grief, loss, self awareness, financial education. So, yeah, definitely go get it. It's also available in an audiobook too. If you can go on Spotify or Libros.fm, you can get if you're more of an audiobook listener.
I want to talk about your work as a financial social worker
Yes.
also. So you have your 9 to 5 day job, but you're doing other things too. Like you have Bass City Entertainment. I saw, so that's like it's like a Zumba company, right? Where you're doing stuff virtually.
Yeah, initially, so October 2020, so of course, like the financial literacy became all the rage during 2020,
Mm, yeah.
and it's literally started watching a lot of YouTube, buying like financial books. I started investing in the stock market for the first time. Opened up accounts for my kids, so they became literally stock market investors through me. Whatever I was learning, try to do, put it in practice. And so I started my LLC in 2020. So initially, I wanted to merge my teachings of teaching Zumba online and then my poetry together to for have self care for us mental health professionals. What I didn't do was do market research to see actually people were willing to pay for that. That was like my first mistake. So that really didn't take off at all. So I literally like rebranded. So I found out about the financial social work certification during the Social Work Wealth Conference of 2020, I want to say 2023. Um, and oh snap, there's like a whole certification for this, and like not a lot of people know about it. I did the certification, did it last year during 2024. I'm like, that's my goal, one of my goals for 2024, and do this certification. So I paid for the certification. It's like literally on your own, like going through these books, and at the end you take a test, and it's basically like an open book test based on the knowledge that you're reading, and then you get a certification, and is accredited through NESW, so it's a legit certification. And yeah, got certified. So basically, my business now provides financial education and counseling for people of color in the sandwich generation, folks like myself who are struggling with their finances while caregiving. The funny thing with that is like a lot of people, especially us in our Black and Brown communities, or just people in general, don't like talking about money. It's very taboo. In talking about estate planning, like for myself, I didn't really have those conversations. COVID took those conversations away from me to have with my mom. I knew my mom had a life insurance policy. She had one on herself, which when she passed away, I was like, saw how much money I was getting. I was like, bro, that's it. You was like struggling to make all these payments, like
Yeah.
every month, these premiums.
You're talking about like the hospital bed, equipment, all that stuff at home. That's all going to cost, right? Like the nursing home, the care.
Part of the reason why she got discharged too was the insurance was no longer going to pay
Mm.
any more time. She like had maxed out like her days. And then the hospital bed, it wasn't fully paid for by the insurance, thank goodness. So they actually called me as, hey, we're coming to get the bed. Thank you, Lord. Jesus, please take this bed because we need the space now. So they took the bed. So luckily, like that had nothing to do with the life insurance policy. So New York was so bad because so many people passed away that supposedly, from what I was told, because mom died as a result of COVID, they had to like, cremate her body. And because so many people passed away in New York City, they had to send her body to Connecticut to do the cremation and then bring her remains back to New York. And so funerals were still happening. So literally, when I went to the funeral home, there was like a funeral happening. I was like, "Dang, why all these people aren't?" I understand somebody passed away at a funeral, but like I was very protective. I was like low key, like germaphobe type, like why you close to me? That was any like doorknob I accidentally touched or whatever, like immediately wash my hands, put hand sanitizer. So I was like really try to protect myself and stuff like that. So like literally like they gave me her ashes. It was like in a box, a string book bag, and like literally put the string book bag on my back, and like I'm walking to the train station, and like we passed by where the nursing home where she stayed at all those months, and it was like in my head hear my mom's voice like cursing that that nursing home. So yeah, but that's one of the things too about financial education is, even if older adults got life insurance policies, like trying to get more bang for your buck in terms of making sure you're getting enough coverage that could actually cover a full funeral if you want it, or if you own a home, making sure and you still have payments, mortgage payments to make sure that, like your home is paid for and things of that nature. So that's kind of what I provide with my services, having those type of conversations and then building kind of a network of folks that I could like refer people to. Like, hey, you need a life insurance policy, I could refer you to these are people that I know that does this and could refer you to those people. Or if you need more like financial management stuff in terms of like stocks and options or whatever like that, I could refer you to somebody else. Because first thing off the bat, I tell people, hey, you ever thought about the stock market? And kind of give like overview. These are companies that you could potentially open an account with, but I can't tell you to go invest in Apple or Tesla like that. That's a whole different certification that I'm not ready for. So I tell people right off the bat, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a financial social worker, educator, and counselor. What does day to day look like? And normalize whatever feelings that you may have in terms of your day to day caregiving struggles. What does that look like? Navigating Medicaid, Medicare, Obamacare, while we still have it before Republicans take it off, potentially 2026. So those different things that use my already case management, care management experience that I already have and regurgitate it in terms of the financial space.
We're coming to the end here. You also have a podcast. We haven't even had a chance to talk about that, but definitely go check out Social Work Rants Podcast. You're 200 episodes in, having a lot of conversations like this, which I really appreciate, especially bringing in folks from the Black and Brown communities, having conversations about finances and social work and really normalizing a lot of that. So I think that's so needed.
So I started the podcast quickly in January 2020. It goes back to my wanting to be a sports broadcaster. One of my friends had a podcast, and one of the episodes he did was actually how to start a podcast. So I listened to it. It was like, oh, I could do this. And one of the podcasts I listened to, called Earn Your Leisure, they did a whole podcast of ways like you can potentially make money from podcasting. I was like, let me get this a shot. And it was like literally one day, like January 2020, I'm like this on my phone, like sitting on my bed, like phone hovering over my mouth. So I had the name already picked out, and this is the Social Work Rants Podcast. And like, I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but we're going to make figure out whatever I said the first episode, and it's literally whatever ideas I had in my head, I just did it. So like having like social work spotlights and like meeting people like who I followed on Instagram, and it's like, hey, you want to come on the podcast? So I want to hear like boots on the ground information, what is happening in your city, your state, that I'm not going to get from like any major network. Like what is happening, what's going on in your community, especially where COVID was still happening, and like what is happening in your community. So that started in doing that. Then we got the stimulus checks during 2020. So that when I interviewed my writing coach, and he's a financial expert as well. So had him on the podcast. I had a NHL former superstar Theo Fleury on the podcast, former chairs of NASW, like New York City chapter on the podcast. So it was like the NASW CEO knows who the heck I am. Like he never met me, he never met me before until we met last year. It's been growing, and I know, and Heard was my first paid sponsor no last year, and no thank you for that. And I'm still trying to find eventual paid sponsors for the podcast, and still trying to navigate, even though the whole podcasting space wants to go to video, which is very annoying because it makes editing harder a little bit. We still trucking along. 5 years in, 219 episodes as of this recording, and goals somehow get to three, even though it's been a struggle sometimes. But what the heck to talk about? And like literally something will happen on the news, or anything will happen, or last minute somebody wants to jump on real quick. And how we've been talking for like over an hour today, that's basically how our conversations go. And just talk social work and talk mental health and talk, you have a business, like, and you're a social worker, what are your struggles in terms of your business? Because they don't teach us business fundamentals in social work grad school, and we literally like learning as we going, and nothing about marketing, nothing about taxes, not all the back end stuff, how to market yourself, and all these different things that people struggle. I'm still struggling with that now with my business, and finding clients and trying to get government contracts from city and state and federal contracts to build our businesses, and trying to get business credit and all the stuff that could help us maximizing our business, and especially relates to social work entrepreneurship. Definitely, because of my now, I wouldn't say hatred, but my extreme annoyance with the NASWB, like, and there's ways now that you don't necessarily need to get your license to actually make a pretty good living. Yes, it'll be harder if you don't want to do clinical work. You don't necessarily have to get your L. You do a variety of different things. There's clothing lines, podcasting, you write books, like host workshops, and you already have your basic skills. Once you have your MSW to use it, whatever passions you have. I've had somebody who like uses the scope of group practice and teaches women how to defend themselves with firearms in Texas. So it's like you don't need a license for that
Right.
necessarily. So it's
Yeah.
like a variety of different things. So I reached the gamut in terms of what we could do in the space in social work.
Yeah. I appreciate that you just have been so consistent over time. We have a lot of folks on the podcast who do different types of things in their business. And something we hear a lot is it's just really about consistency. And you've been doing this podcast for 5 years. And I'm sure at times it's like, is this really worth it? And I don't feel like doing it today. If you're going to have a podcast or if you have a newsletter or a YouTube channel, like just keep going.
The podcast definitely helped me with my mental health,
Mm,
especially like the podcast also became my outlet on top of my book, going through what was happening with clients passing away and just living in New York during pandemic. And my mom passed away, did a whole episode about that, and like when I got remarried, did an episode about that. So just no, I include like my personal life stuff in the podcast episodes as well. So the podcast has definitely helped my mental health and still do now that I'm actually like just allowing myself to feel all the feels of all the losses that I've had and sharing my wins too. So yeah, it's definitely been helpful.
good, man. I know it's Mother's Day on Sunday, so I'll definitely be thinking about you. Two questions here.
Yes.
Uh, what's one thing that people in the sandwich generation need to hear right now?
Man, I feel like the government is attacking caregivers currently with all the cuts that they want to do. It's okay not to be okay, but definitely get the help that you need. Myself, like I'm available taking clients. There's other financial social workers out there as well. So yeah, definitely get the help that you need. There's a lot happening right now, a lot to navigate, but there's help out there.
And then what's one thing that you want therapists and social workers to take away from this conversation?
Keep grinding. Like it's a lot. I know I've teased on the podcast about those who are in private practice going to be doing or potentially doing a lot of case management. And I know there's all this noise about care management versus no therapists online and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people that they are struggling, or people probably struggling more now after COVID that they were prior, or people who were struggling prior to COVID and are even struggling even more right now. Watch as much news as you can handle because there's literally stuff happening like every single day. Unfortunately, because you need to know what's going to happen. You need to know whether the House already passed to cut Medicaid and Medicare. Now, if the Senate passes and you're taking Medicaid, Medicare for your business and seeing clients, how are you going to navigate that for your business? How are you going to help your clients? How are you going to pivot so that you can still make a livable living because you need to live too. And the United States of America is expensive right now to live anywhere. You got to know what's happening in the news to figure out how to navigate with your business.
Bas, thank you so much for coming on the show. For folks who want to connect with you, where can they do that?
Yes, you can follow me on Bas Moreno Consulting on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads. You can go to basmorenoconsulting.com website. For anybody in the sandwich generation, I'm offering a 45-minute free consultation to talk about what's your number one struggle in terms of your finances and caregiving. So, yeah, definitely connect. And also, anybody, I just also do public speaking. So, anybody needs a public speaker, definitely reach out.
Awesome. I hope folks take you up on that. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for sharing your story, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Heard Business School, brought to you by Heard, the financial management platform for therapists. To get the class notes for this week's episode, go to joinheard.com/podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll see you in the next class.